hatred, jealousy, greed. They live in a dark realm adjacent to our reality.
Greed isn't just about money. Greed can be based on hatred towards others for having a more exciting, adventurous, or safe and stable life, and wishing they could have that life for themselves or take it away from others just like that. Greed can stem from the jealousy of seeing a friend with someone else, making them literally green with envy, feel as if they're forgotten, try to take that friend's status as their own. Greed can either be caused by or lead to hating yourself. For the first time on screen, Dela Duck has been built up as one of the greatest adventurers ever, and she proves that she has the ambition, bravery, and knowledge to be just that. And whether she realizes it or not, many of her friends and family, who have only heard stories of hers and rarely seen her in action, desperately want to become just as good, if not better than her as quickly as possible. Dewey and Webby especially have spent so much time looking into her past that they've become obsessed with living up to her status, since Dewey's always wanted her in his life, and with Webby, most of her grandma's stories are probably classified. Hopefully not for long though. That they put themselves and their loved ones in complete unnecessary danger. It isn't until afterwards when Dela confronts them that they admit they're insecure about themselves compared to her.
I'm sorry, Mom. I let you down. I'm not the adventurer you hoped I'd be.
No, honey. I will always believe you can do anything, but you never have to prove anything to me.
Scrooge is always furious that Glumgold has achieved any success from schemes compared to his hard work, so naturally he takes defeating Glumgold's plans seriously, but always enjoys seeing his failure when it happens. And Scrooge feeding the flames really only shows his own obsession with money as his weakness, which of course Glumgold exploits whenever he can. Scrooge is just fortunate enough to have a family to listen to when he's wrong, compared to Flint, surrounded by people he never listens to because he doesn't want to. But how did Glumgold end up this way? Very simple. When someone tries to teach him self-reliance and hard work, Duke Baloney saw it on the surface level, being underpaid by an overrated crook. And based on that one encounter, he believed a crooked businessman was the only businessman. From that day on, he became Flintheart Glumgold, using dirty tactics to get the glory he believes he deserves, consistently outraged every time the legitimate businessman outperforms him. One would think this would be enough to teach him a lesson, but with all the negative attention, it only makes him try harder to prove that his schemes work and that he's right and everyone else is wrong. But all that aside, it's nothing compared to what Lunaris and the Moon have been living through. In constant fear of the Earth for 50 years, it leads them underground, towards creatures that are beyond their control. Meanwhile, the safest place to be couldn't be reached with the technology they had, giving Lunaris and Penumbra a clear bias against the Earth. Dela's the one who shows them how to defeat the Mites. Donald's the one who launches their rockets that supposedly no one could survive. But compared to Penny's blind hatred, Lunaris has created a persona in the years that he's been plotting his invasion that acknowledges every single defense against his own beliefs. This shows that in all the years that he's been planning his attack, he's learned from his mistakes, and he understands that a swift turn from compassion to hatred needs to be based on evidence. Evidence that can convince people out of fear and also out of hatred to follow in his footsteps. But no matter how much you plan, things will go wrong at some point. And when they do, his desperate attempts to eradicate the Earth at the expense of his own people are what cause him to lose everything and everyone, just like any figure who does the exact same tactics as him. It may take days to find out, it may take even years, but eventually, all of these people get found out. After she had sacrificed herself for Webby, I had always assumed that when Elena returned, she'd immediately and finally became a good person, and I was rooting for that. And like many people, I couldn't see right in front of my eyes that Violet wasn't a phony friend like she was, or that Lena's hatred and jealousy towards her was putting the girl she sacrificed herself into danger. So it was clear that she still had a dark side, and it would explain why she would hate herself for her past actions and be so afraid of turning back into her old self. But even at rock bottom, when her own friends are fighting against her, when the woman she hates the most turns herself into her own reflection, she still takes the pain and proves to everyone that she's still a new and improved person. And more importantly, she wants to be.
We were trying to destroy you and you still saved me.
Yeah, of course I did. Of course I would. She would never.
And that's what finally frees her of her self-hatred and her fear. She learned more about facing up to her mistakes in one episode, as opposed to Louie and Dela, who took an entire season to do that. And honestly, it's easy to understand why. I always thought Louie was one of those characters who didn't really evolve or grow, because even after every scheme goes wrong, he still sticks to the easy way out. Until Season 2 became about why he values treasure over the adventure.
Mom was great at adventuring, and she still got hurt. I'm only good at talking my way out of it. How long before that's not enough?
It was from here that I started seeing him as someone with big ambitions, but little effort, and even less self-esteem based on how the people in his life have struggled. I could see how he could justify having people work for him. He has little risk. If he learned con skills from someone he knows for a fact will try conning him, he could learn how to deceive and how not to be deceived. But for a while, I still couldn't see how even when he receives as much discipline, for a cartoon anyways, as possible, he still gets out of trouble and stays pretty much the same person as before. And then it hit me. After every lesson he learns from Scrooge or Dela, or anyone else, his circumstances become bigger, and so do his ambitions. From conning a kid his age, to stealing treasure from the past, to being the richest duck in the world after he swindled from the second richest, it really shouldn't be that big of a surprise to us when he has to learn the same lessons over and over again. But here's the thing, he is intelligent, he can work hard. It just happens to be whenever someone he cares about, or himself, is at huge risk or under pressure. And since they'd give their lives for him, even he can do the same. Louie can observe and predict people's outcomes, can see the angles that anyone else can't, and when his family is by his side, he can lead and assist them to overcome any and all obstacles. But since no one helps him in his schemes, he resorts right back to them because he feels as if he has more to prove.
Mom, I know I messed up before, but seeing all the angles is what I'm good at.
Okay, but you need to take care to not hurt the ones you love, and I'll be here to help you see the angles you can't.
And speaking of Dela, for all the things that make her an incredibly big badass, her biggest trouble is the fact that 10 years of her life were complete waste, all because of no one but herself. So when she returns, naturally all she wants to do is be the best mom ever, which is great. Depending on what best means. Best as in cool, or best as in being a strong figure. And eventually, after one mistake here and there, she does take her time in building up her wisdom and her strictness, and it's pretty well earned. But like any parent, and like I said in my previous DuckTales video, even she can try too hard to protect her children. And since she's left them once, can anyone really blame her for wanting to take them as far away from the fight as possible? No. But that being said, she knows that her kids are great adventurers. She's told them that they know what they're doing. And when it's Louie that shows her just the small things that everyone's learned from her,
Face each new sun with eyes clear and true, unafraid of the unknown.
Because I'll face it all with you.
any doubts that she had about repeating her past completely disappear. And in the end, trusting her children pays off when they follow her lead.
Pew, pew, pew! Dewey! Give me a turn! Pew, pew, pew!
My father taught me that fear is a powerful weapon.
Fear can influence people to make some questionable choices. But at the end of the day, fear is what makes us think about our circumstances. It helps us determine our choices. Having no fear can give people more confidence, which can backfire if they believe that no one can defeat them until they do. This theme, along with many others, are what continue to make DuckTales one of the smartest cartoon shows in recent years. And we have Francisco Angones and Matt Youngberg to thank for that.